Hey guys, this is Alan with Sustainable Intentions and your podcast, Real People, Real Ideas. I want to do an episode that I've been wanting to do for a long time now, actually, because I like to nerd out a little bit about permaculture and sustainability, but this is not just about permaculture, all right? This episode is about the 12 principles of permaculture, but not just how they apply to your garden or your farm or your homestead, but how they apply to life in general, right? So all of these principles that we have, they really work their way into our day-to-day lives, and the more we live by them, the more sustainable our lives become. And when I talk about sustainability, I don't mean like just reducing your waste, right? Which is amazing, and it's a big part of a progression we need to make for the future, something that we can start doing right now. But it's about making your life more sustainable. So, finding a way to where you can live your life where you have more happiness, you have better health, you have better relationships, all of these things. And I think that these 12 principles of permaculture really intertwine with with life in general, living sustainably. So anyways, that's what I want to talk about today. We'll go ahead and start, right? The first principle of permaculture is observe and interact. So, I mean, it sounds pretty basic, right? You need to get outside. You need to observe the world around you. You need to notice things. You need to pay attention to things. You need to get a journal. You need to write things down, right? You need to pay attention to the cycles, because our entire universe works in cycles, whether it's the earth rotating around the sun, the moon rotating around the earth spinning. And then you look at life cycles, being born, growing up, dying, having kids. You look at regeneration, you look at plants, like the cycle of plants. If you leave an empty field, you clear cut a field, but then you just leave it, and what happens? Weeds start to grow, right? And we hate weeds. We want to get rid of weeds in our garden, but weeds are taking and fixing nitrogen into the ground. They're dying, they're decomposing, and they're creating a topsoil layer so that when a bird flies by and drops another seed, it can then grow a little tree or a little bush, that can then give shelter to some sort of, lizard or insect or something that might bring in some other type of seed or nutrient or something else to fix that into the soil, that then and so if you look at this huge cycle, that vacant lot only stays a vacant lot for a little while. I mean, even look at a concrete lot. There's little weeds that grow up in the crevices, right? And if you leave those weeds for long enough without chopping them down, another plant will grow. Eventually, that concrete will get broken up and there will be trees that grow out of it. It'll take a long time, but so anyways, observing these cycles are really, really important in life. Observing the climate cycles, observing how everything is working around you, how the other people are working around you, how the animals are working around you, right? And so look at this in life. Look at a baby, right? Look how a baby sees the world, with these big open eyes, and everything they see they're just mesmerized by, because it's something new and it's something important, and they need to figure out how this interacts with them. And we lose that after time. But if we start opening our eyes and we start paying attention more to the things that go on around us, right? We think of our health in a very linear point of view, like, oh, I got sick, I got a virus from this, I got sick because of this, blah, blah, blah. But we don't think of it as is, I was really stressed out because I've been working too hard. I haven't been paying attention to my health. I haven't been exercising. I've been eating a lot of junk because I haven't been able to, you know, uh, take the time to cook really good meals. And then I got a virus and I got sick, right? So the reason you got that virus is not just because the virus was there, but because your immune system was lower because you weren't paying attention to your body, right? Or you weren't interacting properly with your surroundings. So by observing what's going on around us and observing what's going on with ourselves, taking a little bit of time, paying attention to what's going on in your body, you are going to be healthier, you are going to be happier, you're going to be, lower your stress levels. All of this stuff is really, really important. Yeah, that's the other thing, is trying to force not trying to force things to happen a certain way, right? Because everything moves in cycles, right? We need to, if a cycle is not working right, we need to find a couple small things to take out of that cycle or something else to put into that cycle. So when we're talking about permaculture, say we have a problem with a certain pest, right? A big problem in mainstream agriculture is we decide we don't want that pest. That pest is causing problems, so we're going to kill it, right? And in the process of killing that, we put pesticides, we put all this other stuff. It also kills off all of the natural predators to that insect or that fungus or whatever. And then later on, when that builds an immunity to whatever the pesticide is, your entire crops are laid to waste by this problem that you had before that you tried to just get rid of. But instead of trying to kill something off, what we do is we find the natural predators to that insect, right? So if we're growing something that has problems with snails, right? But instead of trying to kill off all the snails, just like with pesticides, we find a bird or a lizard that likes to eat those snails. And then we find out what kind of habitat that bird or lizard likes to live in. So say there's a certain type of bush, or there's a certain type of birdhouse or tree that these birds live in, or these lizards live in. So we introduce that into the cycle so that we have natural habitat for the predators of that insect. And then, yes, you might still have some of those insects, and you might lose a leaf here or a plant there, but you've also brought in the predators that are then eating those insects, that are then turning them into manure, and then leaving them at that plant to make that plant stronger, to make that soil stronger, right? And so we can do that in our everyday life with the things that we put into our body, or with the things that we introduce into our routines, right? So we know that exercising, even just 10 minutes of exercise, 10 minutes of meditation in the morning, can really boost your immune system, can really boost your metabolism for the day, so that you don't put on that extra fat. That extra fat then makes you feel more lazy, more lethargic. Then you tend to not exercise even more. Then you tend to, this is all observing and interacting with our lives, our cycles, and the world around us. So that's the first permaculture of principle. The next one is to catch and store energy. In permaculture, we think of this, of course. Well, first, let's think of what energy we're talking about, right? We have solar energy, we have wind energy, we have fuel energy, which could come from petroleum products, but we'll shy away from that. And we'll say, what about trees? Trees are fuel in multiple ways, right? Their leaves can be composted to create food for other plants. Their trunks, the wood can be harvested and burned for fuel. It could also be used for building, right? And building shelter, building other things like that. Then many of them produce nuts or fruits or anything else which can be eaten, and that is also a source of fuel, right? So calories is fuel as well, right? It fuels the body, nutrients and everything else. So we want to look at how we can increase the amount of fuel that we're producing, right? Or how we can catch and store the energy that's already there, say the sun. So solar panels, of course, would be a wonderful thing. Wind turbines, of course, would be a wonderful thing. But I like to go back to trees because it's simpler, right? You don't have to have a big fancy machine to catch that energy. Actually, the tree is catching water, wind, and solar energy, and it's turning it into other fuel that can easily be harvested by human beings. Then let's talk about it on a personal level, right? So yes, calories. How are we spending more calories than we're consuming? But not even just calories. What about energy, right? What about energy? So think about your day-to-day life. How many hours do you spend working? How many hours do you spend doing all of the other chores that you have to do in your life? How many hours do you spend sleeping? But then how many hours do you spend on yourself for happiness? For something that you enjoy doing, for getting into a flow state, going mountain biking or going climbing or going hiking or going and doing all of these things that actually make you happy, right? So that's energy, and that's changing your stress levels, and that's making things more sustainable in your life. um, and this is something that we have to weigh out. I mean, I know that a lot of us have, not me personally, but a lot of people have kids and have a house and have a mortgage and have all of these things. So they feel like, well, I have to go to work. I have to do these chores. I have to do that things. And that might be true. But you can still always find a little bit of time, to do some meditation or to do some exercise or to do something that you really like. Even if it's taking something that you don't like to do and figuring out a way to make it make it more enjoyable for yourself, that saves your energy. That lowers your stress levels, which ultimately saves your energy. Okay, so that's our second principle of permaculture, which is catch and store energy. So we'll move on to the third the third permaculture principle, which is obtain a yield, right? So that's basic and simple to think of. Whatever you're doing, you want to make sure that you're getting something back for it, right? Um, Even if you think of, like, I know that's kind of selfish is an attitude, but you can even think of giving your time or your money away to charity. You're still getting something back for it. You're getting that blissful, happy feeling of having contributed to something that you believe in. So that I would even consider a yield. But other than that, your time, your money, your energy that you're spending, what are you getting back? And is it sustainable? Are you getting more back than you're putting in, right? We think about success as a monetary system, right? Or power can also be, um, one of the aspects that we measure success by. So you think, okay, if I'm making six figures, then I'm doing good, right? Then I'm accomplishing, then I'm getting the yield. But how much energy are you putting in to obtaining that yield, right? If you're spending your entire life putting all of your time, all of your effort, all of your energy into making this money so that you can buy a house and you can buy a car and you can, have all of these nice things, but you never have any time to enjoy those things, then you are using more than you are getting back, right? If you work your ass off for 50 weeks out of the year and you only have 2 weeks to enjoy yourself, you are putting way more in than you are getting back, right? You have a certain amount of years in your life, and we don't get to decide how many years those are. Of course, if we're healthy, we eat healthy, we do all the right things, we lower our stress levels, we meditate, we take care of all this stuff, we have a better chance of living for longer and living happier. but we still can't guarantee that. So you still have to think about the now. And I like to have goals, long-term goals, because that keeps us motivated and gets us out of bed in the morning. But you also have to take a certain amount of your energy and focus it on being happy right now, right in this moment. How am I feeling about my day? And if my days are not, or if I have more days that are stressed out and anxious or depressed than I have that are, happy and blissful, then I'm doing something wrong and I need to make a change about that. So then obtaining yields in permaculture is, of course, fuel or food, right? So if we're going to plant a tree, if we put the energy into planting the tree, we want to make sure that tree is going to give us something to eat, or give us the type of wood that we need to build something, or give us, something back, some sort of fuel or anything else like that. So it's really important to figure out what is going to work for you, what is going to create the biggest yield for the least amount of input of energy, right? And it's interesting because we think about gardening. All right, I'll go off on the permaculture thing for a long time. We think about gardening and sustainability, and we all have this dream of this like beautiful Garden of Eden with these mandala shaped, garden beds, and they're all just, raised a little bit and have these beautiful stones around them and have all these pretty flowers and some nice vegetables, and we're going to grow tomatoes and we're going to grow cucumbers and we're going to grow all of these things that we like so much to eat. And that's beautiful, and you should have a garden like that. But how much energy goes into laying those stones, raising those garden beds, and then growing annual crops, right? Whereas you can plant some perennial vegetables, you can find out what grows easily in your area, right? You can plant something and basically leave it, right? Check on it every now and then, make sure the soil's nice, give it some compost, do some things like that, make sure that if it's drought, you give it some water, but you don't have to put that much energy in it. You make sure and keep it closer to your house and further away from your house, so even when you go out to look at it, you're taking however many less steps it is to get there and however many less steps it is to get back, right? This is all saving energy. This is all putting less of your precious energy into a system, and then perennials will keep providing for years and years, and you don't have to keep digging up the soil, keep planting new things every year. You don't have to build these big fancy garden beds. Just clear out a little bit of space, plant some things, let them grow, see how they do, and then go back to that first permaculture principle and observe and interact. If something's not working, you take a little bit out of here, you add a little bit into there. This is what we should do with our life, right? We should put in some effort into a direction, but not all of our effort into that direction. Not put, they say don't put all your eggs in a basket, or don't count your eggs till they hatch. I don't know, whatever you want to say, one of those things. So see how it works. See how it's going. We have this notion in our society that we're supposed to pick a career. We, at 18 years old, we decide we're going to go to college, we're going to study this, we're going to pick a career, and we're going to go for it. And even when we get out of college, we probably have already changed our minds, but we go into it anyways because that's what we studied and that's how we're going to make money. So then we go into this career and we don't like it. We're frustrated. We don't get the satisfaction out of our job that we wanted. We don't get the stimulation in the job. We're not able to use our creativity. We're not able to, really express the ideas that we have, and it becomes stagnant. But what do? We stay there because we feel like, well, if I quit this job and go to something else, now I have to start completely over from the beginning. and I'm not going to have enough money. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. I'm not going to. So what we've done is we've fallen into the trap of stepping onto this one path and saying this is what we're going to do, and this is what we have to do, and there's no way off of this path, right? So it's always good to have plenty of different things going on, and that way when you see that one thing is not working, you can step over to the other thing. And here's the other thing though, guys, is even if you're on that path and you think like, oh man, if I quit my job now, or if I leave here, I'm gonna be doomed, there's no way that I'm gonna, there's time, and time changes a lot of things. So if you're really, really unhappy, just quit. Just do something else. Just fuck it, man. It is not worth it. It is not worth spending the rest of your life doing something that you hate. And sure, it'll be hard, and sure, you're gonna have to go through some shit, and sure, maybe people are gonna look down and be like, what is he doing? He was making so much money. He was doing this. He was doing that. That's what a lot of people told me when I quit my job and left to go traveling. Like, Alan, you're gonna make 6 figures this year. You just quit your job? You're 4.5 years into a career. You have all the qualifications. You have all of the experience. You're supervising. You're making money. You have a house. You have a car. You have all of these things. How would you quit and get rid of all of those things to go travel? It's simple. I wasn't happy, and I wasn't willing to continue to do something day after day that wasn't making me happy. And once I made that choice, I left. And sure, it took a long time to try and figure out, what do I want to do, And look, I'm not going to lie. I go back every now and then and do a little bit of that kind of work to make some good money very quickly. But I always know in my head that this is temporary. And I talk with people about it. I don't lie and get into a job, right, and pretend that I'm going to be there forever. I say, hey, I'm going to be in this area for this amount of months, and I have this amount of time to do this job. Are you interested? And I know you'd think that most of the time people will be like, no, we want something long term or blah blah blah, but I think that openness and honesty, and also a good resume and being good at what you do, it makes people say yes. So maybe I waffled a little bit on this subject, but anyways, make sure that what you're putting in is less than what you're getting out of the situation that you're in. As far as energy is concerned, you need to obtain a yield, and a beneficial yield, right? And I'll go on to the next one. So, apply self-regulation and accept feedback. This is really hard for a lot of us to do. In everything, in gardening, in permaculture, in farming, in work, in life, in everything, right? Self-regulation. Pay attention to what's going on in your life, and if it's not working, you need to maybe not change it completely, but at least tweak it, right? This goes into what I was just saying. And accept feedback. This is one of the hardest things for people to do, is to accept feedback. Accept feedback from yourself, from other people, from the system that you're working in, right? You plant a garden, and you plant tomatoes in this garden, and the tomatoes just die. They do not grow. Right, and you change the garden all around, and you plant tomatoes again in this garden, and they do not work. They grow, they have no fruits. And the next year you change everything around again, and you plant tomatoes in this garden, and they start to fruit a little bit, and all of the fruits die. And so you change this whole system around, and you plant tomatoes in your garden. It's like, sooner or later you have to accept the feedback that the tomatoes aren't going to fucking grow there. That's it. So plant something else, right? but we don't want to. We're stubborn. We want this to be a certain way, right? We plant sections in a garden, right? Just like sections in our life. And we say we want this to work out this way, and we want this to work out this way, and we want this to work out this way, right? It's just like our job. We want to make this much money in this job. We want to have this much home time. We want to have this much, right? So then these cucumbers, they take over this side of the garden, and the tomatoes die. But then you get mad and you chop back the cucumbers and you plant tomatoes again. But then the cucumbers keep, you know, overstepping their boundaries and killing off the tomatoes. Well, at what point do you not just say, well, fuck it, man, I like cucumbers too, right? Let's eat them. It's all good. We'll plant tomatoes somewhere else. This is the same thing with your life, right? If you're doing some side projects, you know, that you really enjoy, and they take quite a bit of time, you know, and they're not paying your bills, and you have this job, and this job is taking up all your time, and you never have time for this side job or this side project, and you just, like, at what point do you not adjust yourself to realize, look, I like this more. I can make some money with this. I might not make as much money as this, but do I really need this, or do I really need this, or I'm spending extra on this? At what point do you not decide, well, this makes me happy, and this stuff that I buy with this extra money that I'm doing from this doesn't really give me any extra happiness. So why not get rid of this stuff, get rid of this job altogether, put my efforts into this job, maybe keep something else on the side in case this doesn't work out, but at least I'm getting to focus my life and focus my happiness on something that I'm doing. And maybe I can't afford as big of a house as I had in my head that I deserve, right? But this other house, nice. And you know what? The fucking front lawn is not as big in this other house, and I don't have to spend as much time cutting it, or I don't have to spend as much money getting somebody else to cut it. You know, there's less, you know, less furniture that I need to fit in this other house. So I actually have more money because I don't have to buy furniture for this extra room that I wasn't even going to use anyways, that one person might come and stay there, you know, 1 week out of the year, and I bought a bed, and I bought decorations, and I bought all this, and I have to clean it, and I have to, you know, wash the windows, and the windows on the second floor, and I have to just downsize a little bit. And you know, maybe my thinking is off from everybody else's, but I much rather live smaller, simpler, and happier than big and lavish and stressed the fuck out all the time. So there's my apply self-regulation and accept feedback. I guess you gotta accept feedbacks from others as well, or from your body. You know, when you have an illness, when you get a disease, when you have a heart attack, when you have, you know, obesity, when you have this is your body trying to give you feedback, trying to say, hey, let's change something, right? Everybody views sickness as a negative thing, and I don't like to be sick, but when I get sick, I accept that my body is trying to tell me that something that I'm doing is not right. Right? It's not just a fluke that I got sick. There's a reason that I got sick. And if I analyze why I got sick in the first place, what was I doing that lowered my immune system enough that allowed me to get sick? Right? This is how we prevent illness. This is how we prevent cancer, and we prevent heart disease. It's by paying attention to the signs right now, accepting the feedback from our own bodies, from our own minds, from our own consciousness, or from our surrounding environments and the people around us, accepting that feedback and making changes. And that's how we'll live healthier lives, and that's how we'll live more sustainable lives. Use and value renewable resources. That's permaculture principle number 5. So yeah, use and value renewable resources. We are a society that is built on taking as much as we can, making as much money, living as lavish as possible, and not giving shit back, right? And listen, except for like, wind and solar, most resources are renewable, right? But they take a certain amount of time to renew, right? A forest is a renewable resource if you're planting and letting grow as much as you're cutting down, right? Or more than you're cutting down. As soon as you start chopping down more than you're planting or faster than it can grow, then it's no longer a renewable resource. Right? We're taking more than we should take. That's what's happening like in Brazil in the Amazon jungle. Right? We're mass clear cutting jungle that's taken thousands and thousands of years, probably more than that. I don't know. I'm not that good with numbers when it comes to history and stuff like that. But yeah, so when we start taking more than we're putting back into the system, it's no longer renewable. We need to find the value of renewable resources, because this is what's going to keep us going on into the future. And I know the majority of you that have sat through 30 minutes now of a podcast about permaculture principles are very open to the ideas that I'm saying, and very open to the fact that we have to make changes right now in order to keep our planet working and healthy. And not really just the planet, because the planet's going to take care of itself eventually, but it will kill us off in order to take care of itself if it has to. So in order to keep the future generations of the human race going, we need to make some changes, right? But even for people who don't believe in climate change, just take a look at some shit, man. Just go down to the beach and see how much plastic's there, right? It's not good. We're taking petroleum out of the earth. We're turning it into a substance that doesn't biodegrade for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And then we're using that once and throwing it away. They can't be sustainable, period. It cannot be, right? Keep every piece of plastic you use in your house. How long before you need to buy a bigger house? The world's only one size, right? So we need to figure out something about that. We need to figure out something about how much exhaust we're expelling into the atmosphere, right? Like, not just from cars, but from factories, from all of that stuff. And if you don't believe it, go to a place like Chiang Mai in the middle of March, where they're burning down to plant, because they don't know the value anymore. They don't worship the value of the plants that are already growing there enough to turn them into compost in order to feed them back to the system. So they just chop and burn everything and then plant something new. So then they're taking out all of this, nutrient cycle from the earth. They're burning it into ash, putting it into, carbon into the atmosphere, and then planting something new, depleting the soil, ruining the atmosphere, and getting rid of all the nutrients all at the same time. It's not sustainable. We need to pay attention to all this stuff. Wind, water, energy. You think even that the oil companies don't have stock in all of this shit? You think that the big wigs, the rich, the powerful, aren't buying up all of these ideas and holding on to them for when oil runs out? They're just trying to make as much money as they can, but they know, right? So let's get on the train. Let's start moving, right? Renewable energy in your life too, right? You have to be renewable. Find your system that works. Find your system where you are producing more than you're taking away, right? And I know that is switched back from what I was just saying on the yield part, but when you think about putting energy in and taking energy out, I'm not saying that your yield, because you created this much, you're supposed to consume that much, right? You create so much more, edible material, then you share with other people, right? This is the way that we make positive change in the world. Okay, I'm gonna go on to number 6. Number 6 is produce no waste. So we were just talking about this with plastic, right? Produce no waste. First of all, one thing that I want to say is waste is a man-made concept, right? Before humans on this earth, there was no such thing as waste. Everything that dies goes back into the system and creates something else. But in order for convenience and in order for a exponential economic growth, which will never be sustainable because it just can't. If you've ever looked at a chart that grows exponentially, right? Well, it just won't happen. We need to figure out how everything that we use, we can use it for something else, right? So everything that we produce, we can turn around and use that for something else. And then whatever waste that produces, we can turn around and use that for something else, right? So instead of producing something for profit and then throwing that away when we're done with it, like plastic, but like everything else, right? You know, one of the biggest problems with society as a whole, well, maybe not as a whole, but Western societies, is human waste, right? Yes, you have to be careful about human waste because it can spread disease, but we consume so much that we're growing from the land, or we're even feeding it to animals and then consuming them. And then when we expel our waste, we are shipping it off to the ocean and dumping it. We are processing all of the nutrient out of it, putting the water back into the ocean through canal systems, through bayous, through whatever. And we're not putting any of that nutrient back into the ground where we need it to grow more things. And we wonder why, farms and all of these other places don't have enough nutrients in the soil. We wonder why people who are still eating all of these vegetables and all of these other, healthy produce products are still getting sick and still having disease. It's because we don't have as much nutrients in our food anymore because we've taken so much from the land without putting it back in, right? So figure out a way in your life in general to produce as little waste as possible. And when you have something that is being wasted, figure out some other way to use it. And this applies to every aspect of your life, right? You can find a way to use up extra things, right? Producing no waste. When you use toothpaste, right, and you're almost out of toothpaste and you squeeze it and you can't get any more out of the toothpaste, right? If you cut the back off of that toothpaste, just cut the top off of it, you can dip your toothbrush in there and still brush your teeth for like a week or two afterwards. Easy. So use up all the products that you have. Use them to their fullest, right? This at least reduces the waste that you use from day to day. In farming and gardening, composting is key, right? We had this idea of composting like, oh, it's so much work. You have to turn it. You have to put just the right things in. You don't really have to do any of that shit. Like if you take organic material and leave it in a pile, it will compost all on its own, right? I mean, if you have it close to your house, you might want to put certain things in or leave other things out to not attract pests, to not attract, animals, to not make it smell bad. But if you have enough space, you can take a corner of a yard or a farm or whatever and just leave that as long-term compost. Everything organic that you are going to waste, throw it in that pile, right? And a year or two later, you push the top of that pile off. You take this amazing soil that you have underneath that has, all of the microorganisms, all of the worms, all of the insects, all of these things already working for you. Or check this out. You don't even have to dig that up and take that with. So you make this big pile of stuff. You just keep adding on top, right? Eventually the bottom stuff, it decomposes, right? From heat, from microorganisms, from all of these different systems that go on in the soil, right? When you're done with that, You move the pile over the top. Then you plant some stuff there. And then you leave it there and pile more stuff on top of it, more stuff on top of it, more stuff on top of it, until that bottom layer starts decomposing. You come back a year later, next year, you move that top over again. And then you plant there, right? And you're doing compost rotation, and that way you're using the least amount of effort to produce amazing soil that's going to grow amazing vegetables. All right, let's move on. Otherwise, this is going to be a lot longer. I still got a few steps to go through, and we're already 40 minutes in. Design from pattern to detail. So designing from pattern to detail really is easy. It just ties into the observe and interact, right? If you see a pattern of certain things growing, right, then use that pattern as part of your design. If you see that all of the water runs off this way and it leaves this ditch in your yard, and there's always water piled up in your yard, and you know, are always upset that there's this water there in your yard that you can never get rid of, and you've done everything you can think of to try and get rid of it, well, why not just turn it into a water feature? Dig it a little bit deeper and put some rocks around it, and now you got a beautiful pond. Right? Why fight these patterns that are naturally occurring in the system to make it into something that we think it should be? Why not observe these patterns and then use them to use the least effort to create, something completely different that will work wonderfully for the rest of the system? Okay, so how would that apply to your life? Patterns. I mean, patterns of anything, patterns of how you feel, you know that at this time each day you start feeling a certain way, blah, blah, blah. So instead of, always getting upset because you're always stuck in traffic at this time, okay, you know at 5 o'clock there's traffic. There's gonna be traffic, period. And you're stuck in that traffic, right? And then you get home and you don't have enough time to cook dinner and to exercise like you want to exercise. Well, that pattern is there. It's there every single day. You notice it every single day. So what do? You exercise at 5 o'clock. You find a gym that's close to your work, right? You go straight there. You exercise for 45 minutes like you wanted to, or an hour like you wanted to, and then from there you go home. The traffic has died down. You actually take less time to get home. Now you've been able to do all the things that you wanted to do. All you had to do was just slightly rearrange the pattern that you wanted to do them in. We have this tendency as human beings to think that we know the best way to do anything, and when things don't work the way we want it to, we get frustrated, we get furious, and we do everything we can to fight against that and to try and make it better and to try and do this. When we accept that a pattern works in a certain way no matter what we do, then we can integrate our system around that pattern and make it easier on ourselves, make our lives easier. So check out these patterns. This happens all the time in life, and here we come back to number one: observe and interact, right? What patterns are happening in your life? What are things that frustrate you that are happening over and over and over and over again? This is a pattern, right? You see it every day. This is happening every day, every day, every day. Stop resisting that pattern. You know that's going to happen. You need to change something about the way you're going about your day, instead of just always getting frustrated that this is always happening, right? Find that pattern and design your day or your routine around that pattern, right? Integrate it somehow. There we go, integrate. So permaculture principle number 8 is integrate rather than segregate, right? And we see this all over. We separate all of these things. We separate people as cultures. We separate nations. We separate, the foods on our plate, we separate, whatever. It could be anything. Mix it up, bring stuff together, right? If you have a group of mechanical engineers that are all trying to work on how to make this machine run the best that it can possibly run, they have their focus in this as an engine, as a machine, as the gears turning, as everything working in this way, because this is like every other project they've ever worked on has always been with these gears in this direction, moving at a certain speed at a certain time, and we need to just tweak something to make this work, right? But the problem is that that whole group of engineers has their minds focused in this one path, and they're trying to change something by using the same, right? What was it Einstein said? That nothing gets changed from using the same methods that cause the problem. I'm sure I just butchered his quote, but what I'm saying is bring in an artist, bring in a musician, bring in somebody who thinks in a different way, and you might get a solution like that, right? Instead of separating ourselves from everybody else, when we start working together, everything starts working easier, right? I mean, there's obstacles that we have to overcome, sometimes working in groups can be quite hard, but when we fight something, when we try and keep things separate, that's when things start going wrong. That's when there's, all of this clash, all of these problems in the world, all of these societal things. That's why we have fanaticism with religion, right? Is because our religion's the best. No, our religion's the best. And we're the only ones that's right. Our God's right. Your God's wrong, and so on. Wait, no. When we look at the similarities, there's so many books out there, but look at the similarities in religion, right? And so when we just accept, look, you can believe whatever you want to believe. You can go to the church that you want to go to, right? And you can still live in my neighborhood. You can still live next door to me. We can still have dinner. We can still have a conversation. Why don't we talk about the ways that our religions are similar, right? Why don't I listen with an open mind about what you have to say, and maybe you'll open up something to me. I don't have to change my religion. Maybe I will understand something about my beliefs that I never even thought about it because I had never seen it from your perspective before. So this is how, we integrate rather than segregate, right? And in your garden, right, working together. This is what I was talking about with bringing in predators for your pests, or bringing in different, plants, right? We call it companion planting, right? Well, the oldest one in the book is the Three Sisters. Instead of growing rows and rows of corn, growing, rows and rows of squash or zucchini or pumpkins, and then growing, building a structure over here for your vine green beans to grow up in rows, right? We plant them all together, right? We plant the corn first. When the corn starts growing, we plant the beans, and we plant the squash. The beans, the corn starts growing, the beans grow, and now they have something that they can climb up, right? So you don't have to build a structure for these beans to grow because the corn is there already, right? And then we have to put down mulch, or we have to, constantly weed these garden beds because, the soil is exposed to the sun and exposed to the water and the other elements, and so there's weeds that are going to grow. Well, no, we plant squash, and squash has these big, lovely, beautiful leaves and creates shade underneath it, and grows along the ground. So this keeps all of the other weeds out because it's too shaded out. The beans have no problem because they grow up the corn, and so they still get sunlight. The corn has no problem because it's already strong before the beans start growing up it, right? And we put these three things together, and it works beautifully. Instead of trying to keep all of these separate rows, and then you have one pest here and one pest here, you put you put some bushes in there for, you know, whatever. Or you put some bird houses in this area. You plant some sunflowers, because the sunflowers attract the pollinators. That's good for the squash. That's good for the beans, right? Let's mix it up. Let's bring things together and work in cycles and systems instead of trying to fight with each other all the time, or trying to separate everything into this nice, neat, perfect pattern. That's not the way nature works. Go outside, go walk in the forest, right? There's no pest problems. Yeah, there's bugs, right? But there's not just an abundance of trees being massacred by one set of insects. That's because the whole system is integrated. Mother Nature knows better than we do, period. That's it. There's no, like, I know that we think that we're gods and we can control everything, but we need to observe. We need to work with systems, and we need to stop segregating ourselves from the other systems of the world. We are part of this cycle. We work together with the earth, right? We are here for a reason, but we've lost that, and we've segregated ourselves from this entire system and built, you know, this idea in our heads that, you know, we're the one creature on the planet that was given this gift, and therefore we are supposed to control everything, and we're supposed to fix everything, and we know better than everything else, right? Animals don't work a job that they hate and get stressed all day long, right? Sure, they get stressed. There's a predator around. They get stressed out and they take off running, or they fight, or they do whatever. And then when it's gone, they go back to eating some grass and enjoying themselves. They don't hold on to stress and get depressed and have to take, you know, antidepressants and go to psychiatrists and do all this stuff. Let's integrate. Right? Let's become part of the system again and work together with other human beings. You know, that's what we're here for. We could be great. We could do so many beautiful things. Start fucking working together. That's what that one's about. Number 9 is small and slow solutions. So I like to think of this for my goals, right? When you get this goal, like I had to be rich. I had to make a lot of money. Like, I need to do this now. I need to work really, really hard and make as much money right now as I can possibly make. That's not sustainable, right? You're going to stress yourself out. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to end up with physical problems. You're going to end up with illness. You're going to end up with all of these other things. And then you're not going to be able to enjoy the money when you have it. And probably the reason that you wanted that much money anyways is because you feel deep down inside that you need to prove it to everybody else that you are worthy and that you can do all of these things, right? We have the problem of creating goals that are, I'm here, my goal is up here. When I reach that, then I will be happy. No, you won't. Because when your happiness is always dependent on achieving the next thing, you never learn how to be happy right now. And when you achieve that, you won't be happy because there will be some other goal that you have to reach to be happy. And you'll continue to do this for your entire life, and you'll never find happiness. So the way I heard it explained, which is really lovely, and it's from a book. I'm not getting any credit for promoting them, like I don't get a cut. It's called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. It's by Vishen Lakhiani, and I listened to it. It was really lovely, and it's good for people with very logical minds because he sets stuff out and says some very scientific stuff and then talks about meditation and all this other stuff. But basically, you have two hands, right? If both of your palms are facing down, think of your left hand as the now. Think of your right hand as the future, right? And think of happiness, right? So we have goals and we have all of this stuff that we want to achieve in the future. And a lot of people live, well, there's a good group of us that live with both hands down. We're not happy now. We don't have any ambition for the future. We're just in this dark place. This is when we get really bad depression, anxiety, all of this other stuff, because not only are we not happy right now, but we don't see a future where we could possibly be happy. So we live with both hands down, right? Then there's some of us that live with our left hand up. which means we're really happy right now, right? We can, hang out right now and enjoy ourselves, but we don't know what we want to do in the future, and we don't know how we can do something that is going to keep us happy now and still give us, something to look forward to in the future. Then you have people that are the opposite way, with the right hand, left hand down and the right hand up, which is, this is people that they have this ultimate goal, and they have this, bright vision of what they're going to achieve and the things that they're going to do in the future, but they have no idea how to be happy right now. Well, what we really want is for both hands to be up. We want it to be even. We want it to be an equal amount happy where we're at right now, and an equal amount excited and passionate about where we're going in the future. And to achieve this, it's really important to set a long-term goal, but not worry so much about how we're going to get there, right? Like, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'll tell you guys that right now. And it's probably pretty funny to hear somebody just say that. Or somebody, especially with my background, who is very happy in the present moment and doesn't work too hard and like kicks it and really enjoys himself. I'm not doing this because I want to have a lot of money. It's because I want to have a lot of available resources to influence things in a certain way, right? I want, if there's an amazing project that I see is going to do a lot of good for a lot of people, I want to have the resources right there to be able to put that money into a project and really run with it, to be able to hire creative and amazing people that get paid really well to do a job that they love, that they feel passionate about. Like, I want to have those resources available, and that's why I want to make that money. I'm not worried right now about how I'm going to make that money. I know that money's going to come because I have that long-term goal, and I'm happy right now. And when I have a day-to-day choice to make, I make it towards that goal, right? I'm not trying to figure out every single step that I have to take to get there right this fucking second. I know that this is a direction I want to go. I have some plans of what I want to do to get there, some basic milestones. And then day to day, on a basis, when I'm presented with a choice, I think, does this work in this direction, or does this work in the opposite direction? And then I make the choice based on that. And then I continue to live my life without this pressure, without this feeling that I'm only going to be happy when I achieve this, or that nobody else is going to respect me until I achieve this. I don't care. You got to let go of all that shit. I'm living my life, and I don't care what anybody else thinks about my achievements. So there you go. Small and slow solutions. Just start doing some stuff. Just put a little bit in there and let it work itself out. Your goal doesn't have to be achieved. You don't have to do something that you can accomplish in 1 year so that you can show somebody, hey, I did this, I did that. I was talking to somebody just the other day, and they said that they realized that almost every goal they've ever had, once they've gotten to the point to where they know that they can accomplish the goal, they lose all enthusiasm whatsoever to finish that goal. That's because they're trying to prove to other people that they're worthy, that they can accomplish something, right? And once they know they can accomplish it, it no longer serves them. They no longer have the passion to do it anymore. So find a goal that is something that you're passionate about, that you love. It's something that's going to create a better future. It's something that's going to contribute to society, in a positive way. Something that's going to make this place better for your children, your grandchildren, or, your friends and family's children and grandchildren. Whatever. Small and slow solutions. Start making little decisions right now that will affect the future. And we can all do it. It doesn't have to be big. Do something. Just do something. Use and value diversity. I'm not going to go too much more into this really, because it's simply the same as integration instead of segregation, right? There's so much, a vast, infinite amount of diversity in this universe. Let's use it. Let's stop fighting it. Let's bring it together. Captain Planet, guys, with our powers combined, right? Let's bring everything together and make this world a beautiful, thriving, amazing place for everybody on here. Why do I need to be rich and everybody else needs to be poor? No, we can all live in this amazing, blissful state together. I believe it's possible. You know, maybe I'm crazy, but I prefer to have this belief that everything can be lovely and beautiful than to have a belief that everything's going to shit. That's me. So use the edges and value the marginal, right? So edges, we talk about edges in permaculture, like, you know, you're planting a garden and you're going to build a fence around that garden so that certain pests don't get in or certain animals don't get in to do this. Or you have some land and you want to build a fence around the land, right? Why not use some sort of edible plant to build that fence? You're taking space and work and materials and all of this stuff. You're going to build a fence. It's going to take time, it's going to take money, it's going to take materials, it's going to take labor. Why not plant something that grows by itself? Maybe you have to water it a little bit, maybe you have to give it some compost or some soil, and then it produces a fence, which is a structure that you wanted, that keeps out some animals or keeps out whatever, keeps something in, and then it also produces food. You know, there's lots of berry type plants that work really amazing for this. So then now you have a fence that you wanted, you used less labor to get there, and you produced some sort of food in the process, or some sort of fuel in the process. These are the types of systems that we should be thinking about. This is the type of creativity we need to use in our day-to-day lives, right? So in this, let's think about something that you completely hate about your day, something that just frustrates the shit out of you. Analogy always comes back to me about traffic, right? But maybe you've realized the pattern and there's no way that you can fight this pattern. This pattern's there. You have to get home at a certain time, so you have to sit through this traffic, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use this edge. This is an edge in your day. This is in between your work day and in between your home family life, and you have this 1 hour where you're going to be sitting in traffic no matter what. So instead of being frustrated as, you know, all day or in this traffic for this hour, find yourself an amazing podcast like this one. Or if you don't like what I'm saying, which you probably isn't true because you're already an hour into the thing, find another one. Find something that you enjoy listening to. Learn a language. You know, learn how to. My father would practice harmonica in his truck when he was in traffic. He would put tapes in, or CDs, or whatever the kids are using now, their MP3 players. And he would play along to music, and he learned the harmonica, and he got really good, and then he had a band for like 10 years where he played harmonica in it, right? Use this time, use this edge for something useful, right? You can be learning all kinds of amazing things. Maybe you want to change careers, right? Use that hour in the car listening to, you know, books or listening to whatever about the new field that you want to pursue. All right, these are ways that we can use the edges to our benefit. And we're going to move on to 12, which ties it all up. They're all very intertwined. This is creatively use and respond to change. Things are going to change, period. The only constant in the universe is change. Everything is always changing. Things are going to change, so use it. Use it to your advantage. When something changes, this is a story I like to tell, and you've probably heard it from another podcast. When I was living in Australia, I had a job, and then I lived in a little room, apartment type thing upstairs from the job, and I was waiting with that job for a visa to go through so I could stay there and work, and that was going to allow me to live in Australia some more. I lost that job like a morning before I was supposed to leave for a 2 or 3 week holiday in the Philippines. I lost that job. So I lost the job, I lost the visa, I lost my place to stay. I lost my source of income, I lost my way that I was going to live in the country that I was living, and I lost my housing, all in the same text message. a day before I was leaving the country for a vacation, right? I could have gotten upset. I could have got pissed off. I could have hated the world. I could have fought it. I could have done all this stuff. Instead, I used that change. There was something that I always wanted to do, and that was to take a permaculture course. As soon as I found out that news, I signed up for a permaculture course in Thailand. I went to the Philippines. I had a wonderful couple weeks vacation. I went to Indonesia. I met a beautiful woman that I'm now engaged to be married to. And then I went to Thailand and I did a permaculture course that really, I mean, I was already headed in that direction, okay, guys? So when I say it changed my life, it's not like my mind just exploded and now I had a whole new way to look at the world. It's not like that. But it is something that inspired me even more on a path that I wanted to go, and I just ran with it, you know. And now I'm living in Bali. I'm making videos about permaculture on the internet, which I'm not quite making any money off of yet. So this is just a hobby, and you guys can feel free. I'm going to tie it in right here. I have a Patreon account, so there's a link on my website to my Patreon account, or you can look up patreon.com/sustainable intentions, and you can feel free to make a donation if you like this podcast and you want to continue to see them showing up. Yeah, so I used that change in my life, that drastic change in my life, and I just ran with it, you know. I got tired of a job. I found a new job. I got tired of living in Texas. I found a new place to live. I wanted to travel. I traveled. Like there's changes going on. When something changes in your life, figure out how it can benefit you. Look at the positive. Be optimistic. Use change to grow and become a better version of yourself. We fear change typically because it's the unknown, right? So fear, adrenaline, fight or flight, stress, these emotions come up in our bodies about change. When you change, oh, there it is again. When you change the way you view change, when you make it always how can I benefit out of this change, out of a situation that I could not control, that was going to happen anyways, there's no point in resisting it, how can I make this a way to live my life better? So that's already over an hour, guys. I didn't think I was going to talk about this for more than 60 minutes, or actually more than 30 minutes. I thought it was going to be short and quick, and then you got me on a flow, and there I went. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can watch the videos at YouTube. You can subscribe to my channel. You can watch them at sustainableintentions.com. The videos are linked there. Or you can listen to my podcast from my website. It's also available now on Spotify. It's going to be available on iTunes, Stitcher, all of those ways to listen to podcasts. I have paid for hosting and done all of this stuff, and it is available. And I am going to do an interview in the next couple days, so it should be out in a week or so, about a friend of mine, Anna, and her partner, Darren, who are living in Australia in a van. And a lot of people go there like on holidays and stuff, and they rent a van and travel around for, a couple weeks at a time, maybe a month or two. But they're like, this is their way of life now. They travel, they're outdoors all the time. They surf, they hike, they enjoy amazing earth, right? And Australia is a beautiful place. And so I'm going to have them on here, and they're going to tell us how they got there, what they're doing, and all about it. So if you guys are interested in that, check out the next podcast that's coming out soon. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, my name's Alan. This is Real People with Real Ideas, brought to you by Sustainable Intentions. I hope you guys enjoy.